Bonjour. Alors aujourd'hui, c'est une journée qui est très difficile pour 4800 personnes qui ont appris de leur employeur Bell Canada qu'il allait faire face à des mises à pied massives. C'est une journée qui est vraiment sombre pour l'entreprise, puis mes pensées vont aux employés qui sont affectés puis à leurs familles. Et je dois dire que je suis extrêmement déçue et en désaccord avec la décision de Bell Canada pour plusieurs raisons. Premièrement, quand les fusions et les achats, les acquisitions ont été permis à des entreprises comme Bell d'acheter des stations de télévision, des stations de radio, des journaux parfois et d'autres entreprises, ça venait, entre autres, avec la promesse que ça allait permettre de continuer à fournir, à faire les bulletins de nouvelles, à soutenir l'industrie culturelle et que c'était bon pour l'avenir des entreprises. Et aujourd'hui, malgré que Bell Canada a eu des allègements de 40 millions de dollars pour les aider à faire leurs bulletins de nouvelles de la part du CRTC, des allègements réglementaires de leurs obligations, ils choisissent aujourd'hui de couper dans les bulletins de nouvelles et de vendre 45 stations de radio, ce qui est extrêmement décevant, particulièrement dans un moment où l'industrie canadienne traverse des moments difficiles, où on est en processus réglementaire, notamment au CRTC, pour réaligner le système à l'ère des médias numériques américains. Et au moment où toute l'industrie devrait se serrer les coudes, on voit que Bell décide de protéger des dividendes à des actionnaires. Puis croyez-moi, je suis contente qu'il y ait des actionnaires qui fassent de l'argent, mais aujourd'hui, ils ont préféré de mettre à la porte 4800 personnes, de reculer sur leurs engagements en termes de bulletins de nouvelles, donc c'est extrêmement décevant. So today is a dark day for 4,800 people in Canada that have learned from their employer this morning that they will be facing massive layoffs at Bell Canada. And my thoughts are with them and with their families. I know how hard it is. The uncertainty and the few months ahead are going to be very, very difficult. I also want to say that I'm extremely disappointed in Bell Canada's decision for many reasons. One of them is because in the past decade, when acquisition were allowed for those big companies to acquire television station or radio station, it came with the promise that they would deliver on news content. And today, they are backing from that promise, even though they were allowed to acquire all this privilege, Canadian privilege. Also, the CRTC, because they are facing difficulties, alleviated them of the burden of $40 million per year to help them keep their promise of producing news. And again, they're backing away from that. And at a time where there are regulation changes that are coming at the CRTC, at the time where the cultural industry is having a hard time, that the news sector is having a hard time, we need everybody to hold strong in the next few months until the CRTC finally give final regulation with the new Broadcasting Act. So I'm extremely disappointed, and it's a hard day for everyone.
How is your government going to respond? Because you've went through pains to implement C11, C18 to preserve local journalism. You mentioned the $40 million that they saved in licensing fees. They're going to get additional millions through C18. What are you going to do and here they are cutting local journalism. What are you going to do? How is your government going to respond to this after, giving them all these?
So our government responded already multiple times. Even though we were facing a lot of obstruction by the Conservatives to make those regulatory changes, we held strong and we moved forward. There were changes made at the CRTC to help those companies that are facing challenges. But at some point, companies also have to chip in. And again, they are not going bankrupt. They're still making billions of dollars. They're still a very profitable company, and they still have the capacity and the means to hold their end of the bargain, which is to deliver news reports.
Est-ce que Bell Media vous a contacté? Est-ce qu'il y a eu des demandes qui ont été faites de leur part à votre bureau ou au CRTC? Est-ce qu'il y avait encore des négociations à cet effet-là?
Bien, j'ai beaucoup de discussions avec les gens du secteur parce qu'il y a des défis nombreux. Donc oui, j'ai eu des rencontres avec Bell depuis que je suis arrivée en poste, là, depuis le mois de juillet. Et oui, j'étais au courant qu'ils aimeraient ça, que ça aille plus vite avec le CRTC. Ils ont toujours beaucoup de demandes et tout ça. Mais on a déjà agi avec plusieurs des demandes que les gens de l'industrie avaient. On a complété quand même une étape importante avec la loi sur les nouvelles en ligne, avec le deal avec Google. La loi a été modernisée, c'est entre les mains du CRTC. Il y a eu des allègements qui leur ont déjà été donnés pour la période intérimaire. Mais à un moment donné, des entreprises qui font des milliards de dollars, qui se sont engagées auprès de la population canadienne, doivent respecter leur bout de leurs engagements.
What is the consequence? You talk about these companies that have this privilege of enjoying near monopoly status in telecommunications. As part of that agreement, they are going to produce news and local news, and now they're walking away from it, and your government doesn't do anything, neither does the CRTC.
Well, the CRTC does have the power to react because they do have obligation. Today I'm reacting to the sad news, and I'm saying that we have already gave and did a lot of work to help those broadcasting companies. There's still a few months to go through the regulatory process at the CRTC, and we hope that those big companies are going to hold their end of the bargain.
What if they don't? What if they don't?
Why continue to subsidize news if they're just going to fire local journalists?
I wanted to respond to the very sad news that thousands of more people who are working to maintain our democracy by doing good, effective journalism, telling Canadian stories about themselves and about each other right across this vast expanse of Canada, that because of the Bell layoffs, they'll be losing their jobs. And our profound, heartfelt sympathies are with all of those families who've received, yet again, in Canadian professional journalism, this horrible notice that they'll be laid off, particularly W5, which has been such a historical bastion, foundation of Canadian public affairs programming. The fact that that program is being ended is saddening. We need professional journalism. We need to be able to tell those stories about each other and about, across this vast expanse of Canada, about ourselves. Given the diversity of Canada, it is vitally important that the federal government has simply not been there. They have ignored what has been a deepening crisis. They have given money to Bell. They have not, that's not come with any strings attached. They've not been forced with those subsidies to actually provide any of the jobs that are so vital for the community journalism and for communities to know what is going on in their region and across the country. And this is where the federal government finally has to step up. They have to stop being asleep at the wheel. They have to step up, and they need to start providing supports to good professional journalism across the country. In my opinion, they need to stop the massive subsidies that they're giving to help hate and disinformation. $1 billion a year going to Meta and Google is ridiculous at a time when so many Canadian journalists are being laid off. And so this government needs to start taking this seriously. They have not. They need to immediately step up, provide supports, provide direction, provide leadership, and they need to ensure that resources are going to support professional journalism in this country and not disinformation and hate with this massive subsidy to Meta.
Merci beaucoup, Peter. Donc, oui, Alexandre Boulerice, député de Rosemont-Petite-Patrie. Écoutez, on est ici aujourd'hui pour commenter une nouvelle qui est absolument dévastatrice pour l'ensemble du secteur des médias et des nouvelles dans notre pays. Les coupures de milliers d'emplois, on parle de 4300 emplois de Bell qui ont annoncé qu'ils vont être coupés dans les prochaines semaines. C'est un coup extrêmement dur pour tout le secteur du journalisme, des médias et des communications au pays. Malheureusement, c'est pas la première fois. Ça fait des années que les salles de nouvelles tombent comme un château de cartes presque, et on a un gouvernement libéral qui se tourne les pouces. Il se tourne les pouces, il n'aide pas vraiment ces emplois-là, il n'aide pas les professionnels du journalisme. Il donne des dizaines de millions de subventions publiques à Bell sans aucune garantie de maintien des emplois. C'est absolument irresponsable. C'est donner un chèque en blanc à ces grandes compagnies-là, puis on voit le résultat aujourd'hui. Et ce qui est dommage, c'est que tout ça se passe en même temps que ce même gouvernement libéral va donner 1 milliard de dollars à Facebook puis à Google, alors que c'est des ressources qui pourraient être investies pour sauver nos salles de nouvelles, qui ont un impact tellement grand dans plusieurs communautés, dans plusieurs régions, qui sont essentielles à la qualité de notre vie démocratique et au débat public. Alors, on a un gouvernement qui ne fait rien. On a une ministre du patrimoine qui fait des beaux discours, mais qui a passé une bonne partie de sa carrière à être une leader syndicale dans le secteur des communications, puis son principal but, c'était de sauver des emplois dans le secteur des communications. Je me demande, elle est où aujourd'hui, puis elle fait quoi? On va prendre vos questions.
Vous dites que le gouvernement ne fait rien. Il y a quand même eu, là, bon, il y a eu C11, il y a quand même eu une entente avec Google également. Qu'est-ce que vous demandez au gouvernement de faire? Est-ce que c'est, par exemple, de dire à Bell, bien, vous avez des obligations au CRTC, puis on vous force à les... Qu'est-ce que c'est exactement? Bien,
comme les gouvernements peuvent le faire dans plusieurs secteurs, c'est-à-dire que oui, c'est bien d'avoir des crédits d'impôt, d'avoir une aide. Je pense qu'il y a à peu près 40 millions suite à C11 qui a été mis de l'avant, mais sans aucune garantie que ça va servir à maintenir des emplois. Alors là, c'est pour ça que je dis, c'est comme un chèque en blanc que les libéraux font, puis ensuite de ça, bien, c'est dommage, la compagnie privée elle a décidé qu'elle faisait des coupures parce qu'elle veut faire encore plus de profit. Je veux dire, c'est bien le fun, là, mais ça ne donne pas grand-chose pour les travailleurs et les travailleuses dans la vraie vie. Donc, il y a de l'argent qui est investi dans Facebook puis Google qui est disponible. Puis ensuite de ça, bien, il y a un gouvernement qui doit demander des garanties de maintien d'emploi au lieu juste de garrocher de l'argent comme les libéraux font.
Si vous aviez à qualifier ce que Bell a fait avec justement cet argent-là qu'il a pris, puis visiblement qu'il n'a pas respecté cet engagement, selon vous, comment vous qualifieriez l'attitude de Bell actuellement? Bien,
je pense que c'est l'avidité des grandes corporations qui, c'est pas, ils se préoccupent pas des communautés, ils se préoccupent pas du journalisme, ils se préoccupent pas de la démocratie, c'est plus de profit. Puis le jour où j'ai plus besoin de toi, ben je te jette à la poubelle. Et ça, c'est extrêmement dommage pour les milliers de personnes qui vont perdre leur emploi. Mais nous autres, aujourd'hui, ce qu'on dit, c'est qu'on interpelle Justin Trudeau puis Pascale St-Onge d'agir pour sauver les salles de nouvelles, pour sauver la qualité de notre vie démocratique.
What do you make of Bell's excuse for these cuts as the CRTC not moving fast enough regarding recent regulatory changes as it relates to C11?
Well, I think when we are providing financing to Bell, which is what the federal government has done, it has to come with a requirement. And what they've simply done is taken that money and put it in their pocket rather than providing the supports for newsrooms across the country, for professional journalists. And so I would turn it back really on the federal government. When the federal government gives money without any conditions at all, then we see the results of what we've seen today, which is thousands of layoffs. It's tragic, it's unfortunate. And what the federal government needs to do is start showing leadership. First off, any funding that is going to Bell or any other corporation needs to come with the key guarantees in terms of jobs and maintaining professional journalism. Secondly, why are we subsidizing Meta and Google to the tune of $1 billion a year in indirect subsidies, supporting advertising on those platforms when Meta particularly has been most egregious in disseminating disinformation and hate and is doing absolutely nothing to help support Canadian journalism. So we have a federal government that is simply asleep, and it is time that they woke up and did the things that are going to make a difference to maintain and enhance professional journalism in this country. And that's the intent of C-18. And the federal government has not been moving to put in place all of the conditions to make sure professional journalism can thrive. That has to change.
Your party supported C11 and C18. Does it feel like a slap in the face that, you know, they were able to save money through regulatory fees, and then they're also going to get additional money through C18, and then now here they are laying off local journalists while they're recording profits?
I think what it is a wake-up call to the federal government to act. The conditions in C18 and C11 provided, I think, a really effective foundation to ensure that we had professional journalism across the country. We're not seeing the government move quickly enough. We're seeing the government provide money without asking for those job guarantees that are so important. And we continue to see the federal government subsidizing indirectly Meta and Google to the tune of $1 billion a year. That's a ton of money. And when we see the fact that a lot of news organizations, a difference of 10 or 20 million would make a huge difference. It makes no sense at all that we're continuing to splurge on Meta when we are not even asking for job guarantees for the smaller amounts that are going to companies that run our radio stations, our television stations, and our newspapers in this country.
The Fed should also pull, we've seen the Canadian government advertise on X, formerly known as Twitter. Do you think they should also be pulling advertising from that company?
The figures are smaller for X in terms of the subsidy, the advertising subsidy, but the reality is these social media platforms receive a ton of supports that are completely inappropriate. May have been 20 years ago when they were in their startup stage, absolutely inappropriate now, and those indirect subsidies have to end. Yes,
As a former member of the Bell media family, could I ask if you were able to share your reflections on today's job losses at Bell Canada?
Very personal. There's a lot of people I know, a lot of good people who lost their jobs today. This is a company that was trusted with news, was trusted with journalism. It's hard seeing journalists being treated as rounding errors in what I think are healthy profit margins. This is tough. This is tough, mainly for the people who are involved, but it is tough for journalism and for the news business in this country.
Is there a way forward for corporate Canada and the news business to find a way forward?
Well, that's what the Heritage Minister is working on now, and I've said, I've had conversations since we spoke actually with the Heritage Minister, and I'm so impressed with her depth of knowledge of this file and the passion that she holds for it, which is also very personal for her. So I've said to my colleagues, I feel it's in good hands with her. What we do from here on in, I'll leave to her. But today, I think it's just important to remember the many contributions of a lot of journalists, good journalists in this country, name brands and people and reputations that Canadians trusted to give them their news. This is a lot to take. It's a lot to take. Deeply, deeply personal for a lot of us.
The last question I'd ask before you head to your flight home to Newfoundland is, we've seen a lot of cuts throughout the years. There's always cuts, there's always changes, there's business decisions to make a new platform to deliver things that Canadians will watch and so on. But is there something unique about today, or is it just another one in a long series of cuts to the industry, do you think?
I think it's the number, the sheer number. This is a sweeping round of layoffs that affects so many people. The depth and breadth of it is just awful. It's atrocious. Just so many good people who have lost their jobs today. And it just does not reflect well, bode well for journalism in this country. And therefore, it doesn't, it's not good for democracy in this country. That's a big concern. You need people who have the experience, who have the time and the professionalism and the dedication that journalists do in this country. Having a lot less of them is not a good thing.
Is there any message for the board of the leadership of Bell Canada?
We are sorely disappointed. Sorely disappointed. I think that time and again, government has attempted to find a way to understand that journalism is a privately held business for the most part in this country. And how do you do that and protect journalists and journalism in this country? And it's not easy. Democracies all around the world are trying to figure this one out. But this, I think, just because of its sheer depth and breadth, just shows an utter disregard for so many good people in a vital industry in this country.
Anything I missed?
No, I could probably prattle on, to be honest. Anyway, thanks for doing it.
Thank you for stopping. Good to see you.
Good to see you.